Hello and welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe, like and comment. Let's get the channel to 20k. With that said, let's get into the video. Now, ever since the unaliving started between Israel and Palestine, people have tried to call for a ceasefire but to no avail. It's really been tough trying to convince Israel to agree to a ceasefire, but in this video we get the first official statement from the government confirming that the deal has been approved. Now, Israel's cabinet finally has approved hostage release. Now, after hearing this, people are reacting differently to this news. I'm also wondering if this ceasefire is because of people threatening to boycott Black Friday or not. Because in another video that I will share with you guys, you will hear people planning on boycotting this Black Friday in solidarity with Palestinians. People did come up with lists of what to boycott, and a lot were saying that this season they will not see a dime. So could this be the reason why Israel is agreeing to a ceasefire? Kindly share what you think about this move. Here are a few clips I compiled for you guys, and when I get back, we go deep into talking about this news.
We just got the first official statement from the government confirming the deal has been approved, and also confirming many of the details we've reported about the deal throughout the course of the day. So let me read this to you. This is not the official translation, but I'll translate it from the Hebrew. It says the government of Israel is committed to the release and return of all of the hostages home. Tonight, the government approved the first stage of the deal for that to that effect, according to which 50 hostages will be freed, women and children, over a 4-day period, and that will lead to a pause in the fighting. The pause will continue every day in which 10 more hostages are released. And then it goes on to say that the government of Israel, the Israeli military, is committed to continuing the war, to continuing to free hostages, and to continue in its mission to destroy Hamas and ensure the safety of Israel. So we'll get an official translation of that shortly from the government, but an important first statement here acknowledging that the deal itself has been approved. A government source said it was approved by a significant majority a short time ago, following what was a very lengthy cabinet meeting. But this was the expectation all along here, although there were few dissenting voices. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has led this effectively over the finish line, and now it's just a question of how soon those hostages are released.
We just got some massive breaking news. It's just been announced that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a deal brokered by President Biden and the United States for a ceasefire to allow for hostages to return home. This was just announced moments ago when the Israeli cabinet approved this deal, in which Hamas will free dozens of Israeli hostages in exchange for a 4-day pause in fighting in Gaza and the release of dozens of Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. This deal, if implemented, will be the biggest diplomatic breakthrough and the first major pause in fighting since the war began. In the first phase of this 2-phase deal, Hamas is expected to free about 50 Israeli women and children held in Gaza, while Israel is expected to release about 150 Palestinian prisoners, mostly women and minors, over the 4-day pause. Also, as part of the deal, Israel will allow around 300 aid trucks per day to enter Gaza from Egypt. More fuel will also be allowed in during the pause in fighting. Now, in the second phase of the deal, Hamas could release dozens more women, children, and elderly people in return for Israel extending the ceasefire by several more days. So this is a very, very big deal. It's awesome to see. So not only is Israel getting more innocent people from captivity in Gaza, which is awesome, but also innocent people in Palestine are getting more humanitarian aid than they were. And of course, there will be a pause in fighting. So this is a massive breakthrough in the war. And once again, thank you to President Biden and the United States for getting this deal over the line. This stuff is not easy, and they managed to get it done. This is great news.
Hamas and the Israeli government have agreed on a temporary 4-day ceasefire. During the first phase, Hamas will release 50 hostages in exchange for 150 prisoners. The deal also includes for Israel to allow 300 aid trucks to enter Gaza daily through Egypt. The second phase includes Hamas releasing more hostages in exchange for a longer ceasefire. But nothing is final yet. For the ceasefire to go through, Israel needs to talk to the mediator, which is Qatar, and tell them that they agree to the guidelines. Qatar will then announce it to the world. Then Israel has 24 hours to challenge the deal in Israeli High Court. If the challenge fails, then the first exchange can happen as early as Thursday or Friday. But we need to continue. Ceasefire is the bare minimum.
My thoughts on the ceasefire and exchange of prisoners. So let me begin with saying that human life should have no price, especially innocent human lives. Let's not forget that the hostages that were snatched, the 200 hostages snatched from Israel, are innocent hostages. They were not military personnel. They were not terrorists. They were regular, ordinary citizens that were literally watching TV in their bedrooms, or were like a 9-month-old baby, or like an 80-year-old's grandma, like drinking her tea. Okay? Like, these are like regular people. And Hamas organization has the audacity to snatch these innocent human beings from their homes and then hold them as a pawn in this game that they're playing with themselves. Mind you, they're using the people of Gaza as pawns as well, because Hamas organization cares for no one but themselves and also just annihilating Israel. So the poor people in Gaza that are innocently getting hurt through like this war, all because of Hamas. Because Hamas has decided to steal 200 innocent individuals and refuses to give them back. Like, that's insane. Don't even get me started on the atrocities that they caused to get those 200 people and the 1,400 people that they slaughtered. So now they're trying to use these innocent people as pawns, and they're like, hey, for every one innocent hostage, we want 3 people to be released from jail. And they agreed to release 50 innocent people in exchange for 150 terrorists in jail. Now, before you go on and say like, oh, but there's like a 16-year-old in jail, like Israel has a 16-year-old in jail, like that's messed up, like we want that 16-year-old back. But did you know what that 16-year-old did to get in jail? That 16-year-old stabbed someone to death in front of their children. So yes, they are a 16-year-old, and I am sad that they're in jail. But if you dig a little deeper and understand like why they're in jail, yeah, you should be in jail. You should not be stabbing people for any reason, quite frankly. Yeah, so you should be in jail.
Now, Israel and Hamas have reached a deal for a 4-day pause in fighting and the release of at least 50 women and children held hostage in Gaza, marking a major diplomatic breakthrough nearly 7 weeks after the start of a conflict that has spiraled into a grave humanitarian crisis in the enclave. The deal was laid out by the key negotiator Qatar in a statement, would see hostages held captive by Hamas released in exchange for a number of Palestinian women and children in Israeli jails. Now, the truce, meanwhile, would also allow the entry of a larger number of humanitarian convoys and relief aid, the statement said. Now, the starting time of the pause in fighting would be announced within the next 24 hours. That's what the statement added. And there is an option for the pause to last as long as 10 days, but Israeli officials believe it is unlikely to last that long. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said when the deal was approved that for every additional 10 hostages who are released, there will be an additional day of a pause in the fighting. The US and Israel will also both pause drone fights over Gaza for 6 hours each day as part of the deal to secure the release of 50 women and children hostages from Gaza. Qatar's lead negotiator, Minister of State, said the agreement should prompt the international community to seize this brief window of opportunity to generate further momentum for the diplomatic track. Now, the announcement has been greeted with relief and heightened anticipation from the families of those taken hostage who now await further news about their loved ones. It has also been met with positive reaction on the international stage. Egyptian president reiterated Egypt's commitment to finding a suitable solution for the Palestinian people, while Qatar's prime minister said his country hopes the development will establish a comprehensive and sustainable agreement that will put an end to the war and the bloodshed. Jordan's foreign ministry said it hopes the foreign mediated deal will be a step that leads to a complete cessation of the war in Gaza. Now, a source familiar with how hostages are expected to leave Gaza told CNN that the first swap is expected to take place Thursday 10 a.m. Israeli time. Some 50 Israeli hostages, including some with dual nationalities, are expected to be released over the 4-day pause. 10 is the minimum number of hostages to be released each day, but that could be higher. So the first swap is the most crucial to see that the mechanism is working as agreed. Now, every evening before the next day's release, Israel and Hamas will give the Red Cross the list of hostage and prisoner names being released the next day. They added, hostages will be brought by the Red Cross to Rafah, where they will be met by specially trained Israeli soldiers. They will verify that the hostages released were the ones expected and on the list. Now, the families of the hostages will not be notified until the identities of hostages released have been confirmed, said the source. The newly announced deal followed weeks of negotiations that included the United States and Egypt and was approved by Israel's cabinet in the early hours of Wednesday morning, following a 6-hour meeting an Israeli official described as tense and emotional. Some 150 Palestinian prisoners would be released over 4 days during the initial hostage release if terms are met, the government said. Palestinian authorities say that at least 14,532 people have been unalived in the Israeli assault, including 6,000 children, and humanitarian conditions have sharply deteriorated under constant siege and being. Now, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been displaced with few options for seeking refuge in the tightly packed strip, while humanitarian organizations have stressed that only a permanent ceasefire can address the catastrophic scale of civilian suffering in Gaza. Many Palestinians, exhausted after weeks of continuous have welcomed the pause as a much-needed respite. Israeli media reported that 200 to 300 truckloads of fuel and aid would enter Gaza daily. Levy said that during the truce that Israel would put no constraint on the entry of humanitarian aid into the coastal enclave, which Israel cut off from electricity, fuel, food, and water since the beginning of the conflict. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the deal in a statement, saying it was an important step in the right direction, but much more needs to be done to end the suffering. Let's check out a few comments and hear what people said about this. The voices of good humans have finally been heard. We are winning the PR war. We have more control of them than they have. Free Palestine. Bring all the hostages home now. Praying this deal goes ahead with no issues. I honestly pray so too. Until then, we wait to see if this will work out. In which world are babies prisoners of war? I guess in this one. Now, this commenter has actually reminded me of something I saw as I was doing my research, talking about the same where the family of Abigail, who's the youngest hostage, and the family was praying that she goes back home by Friday, her 4th birthday. All the hostages need to be freed now. 50 is a start, but they must all be free. What do you think about this news, guys? Kindly share your take on this. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.